I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons, my Bibliospran, Bibliohowlers, and Bibliomancers. Thank you so much for supporting my hobby and passion even more. It means so much to me. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be my September TBR. Just like always, I will mention about 8 or 9 books that I plan to read in the month of September, but this doesn't mean that I will be reading all of them because, as you all know already, I usually read about 4 to 6 books per month now. And just to prove my point, the first book that I'm going to read in the month of September is Age of Swords again by Michael J. Sullivan. This is like the 3rd time I'm featuring this in my monthly TBR. Seriously, if you watch my July TBR and August TBR, you will see me mentioning this book. But that's because I ran out of time each month. So now I definitely will be reading Age of Swords. In fact, I am in the middle of reading this right now. I'm still in the beginning, but I am in the middle of reading this right now. So you won't be seeing me mentioning this in my next month TBR. At least, I hope so. But this is the 2nd book in the Legends of the First Empire series. So this year, I already finished my reread through Reread Revelations. And I hope to be able to finish the Legends of the First Empire as well before the year ended. At least that's my plan. And I know that's still 4 books away, so I definitely have to finish Age of Swords this month. And then after that, I plan to read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. This is another book that I planned to read last month, but I wasn't able to get to it, so I plan to finish it this month. This one is the first book in Earthseed Duology, a duology that I've heard so many great things about, and other than that, I don't know anything about it, and I plan to keep it that way. But I heard nothing but good things about Octavia Butler's books, and well, I hope I will love this one. And then after that, I plan to read Priest of Crowns by Peter McLean. This is the 4th and final book in War for the Rose Throne series, a Peaky Blinder-inspired grimdark fantasy series. One of my favorite ongoing series, and well, I hope that after I finish this one, this will become one of my favorite series of all time. So far, from what I've read, it certainly has all the potential to become one of my favorite completed fantasy series. I heard lately, that the ending can be very divisive. The ending to Priest of Crowns, it's either I absolutely loved it or maybe disappointed with the ending. But from what I've read in the series, I don't think Peter McLean can go wrong. This series is a gangster fantasy series, and it has one of the most distinctive voice in any fantasy books that I've read. Seriously, the main character has such a charming and distinct voice to the narration that Peter McLean has pretty much become the messenger for his narration. I loved it so much, and I definitely will be reading Priest of Crowns this month. Another book that I plan to read this month is The Gardens of Empire by J.T. Greathouse. This is the sequel to The Hand of the Sun King, and The Hand of the Sun King is a book I really love. It's, in my opinion, the best fantasy debut released last year that I read last year. I love The Hand of the Sun King so much, and I hope that The Gardens of Empire will be able to live up to it. I heard that this one will feature a multiple POV character now, unlike the first book, which features only the main character, Alder Wen. So I'm curious to find out whether this will work out well for the narrative or not, but I know that many people have read this one and loved it. Also, I really love the cover art. This cover art is once again designed and illustrated by Petrik, and I think it's fitting to the series. It's so fitting to the series, and I love the colors. And the next book that I plan to read in the month of September is Swan Song. This is Swan Song by Robert McCammon. So I mentioned last month in my last month TBR, if I have the time, I would love to read Swan Song, but Swan Song is a massive book, and yeah, I wasn't able to get to it, just like Parable of the Sower and also Age of Swords. And I will keep my fingers crossed that I will be able to get to Swan Song this month. I absolutely love Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, and it is absolutely insane that I still haven't read anything else by Robert McCammon. If I end up loving Swan Song as well, even better if it's as much as I love Boy's Life, then I will probably read every book by Robert McCammon, starting from Matthew Corbett's series. But yes, I will read Swan Song first, which I think is his most popular book. And then after that, I plan to read Age of the King by Philip C. Quaintrell. This is my monthly read, so this is the 6th book in Echo Saga. Yeah, this is the conclusion to the 2nd trilogy in the Echo Saga series. The main series is divided into 3 trilogies, and now I have finally arrived at the conclusion of the 2nd trilogy. This is one of my priority series to start and finish within this year, and I hope that I can keep it up for the rest of the year. 1 book per month for the rest of the year, which means that I will be done with the series in December. I will be talking about Kingdom of Bones in my monthly wrap-up, but let's just say that I loved it. Again, every book in the series, none of them are below 4 stars rating for me. I think if you're a fan of classic fantasy with a modern narrative, I don't think you can go wrong with choosing this series to read. It is one of the most highly praised self-published fantasy series, but somehow I just don't see many people talking about it, even though it's so highly praised and so popular in Amazon. And finally, the last 2 books that I plan to read in the month of September, both of them are Reread, and the first one is The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. So this is the first book in the 5 Warrior Angels trilogy, and just like War for the Rose Throne, this is one of my favorite ongoing series. I love The Forgetting Moon, and I absolutely love the sequel, The Blackest Heart. And because The Lonesome Crown is being released in November, The Lonesome Crown is the final book in the 5 Warriors Angels trilogy, and it is one of my most anticipated books of the year. And because it is coming out in November, just like The Lost Metal, well, I'm doing a second read of the series because it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years, well, it's been 2.5 years since I read The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart. And I don't remember too much details about it now, and I think it's better for me to reread the series again before I read The Lonesome Crown. I want to be able to do this series justice because Brian Lee Durfee and the 5 Warrior Angels deserve it. This is, without a doubt, one of the most underrated fantasy series out there. And the second book that I plan to reread in the month of September is, well, you probably can predict it if you have watched my TBR videos. This is The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. This is the last available book in Mistborn Wax and Wane or Mistborn Era 2. And just like the 5 Warrior Angels, I'm rereading the series in preparation for the last book, The Lost Metal. The Lost Metal, just like The Lonesome Crown, will come out in November. So once I'm done with The Bands of Mourning, I will be ready and prepared to read The Lost Metal. But I think next month, I will most likely do a second read of The Secret History as well, which is a Mistborn novella. Beyond that, I cannot talk about, well, anything about it because it's all spoilers. So yeah, I remember that The Bands of Mourning was my favorite books of Mistborn Era 2 so far, and I'm hoping that on my second read it will be the same case because I really love my second read of Shadows of Self. And I'm curious whether The Bands of Mourning will be able to live up to the quality when I first read the book. And finally, if I have the time, I plan to read Dark Theory by Wick Welker. This is the first book in Dark Law series, and this is a science fantasy, a self-published science fantasy series. The cover art looks beautiful, and I've heard nothing but great things about Wick Welker's books. And I am always up for science fantasy book or science fantasy series. I love science fantasy. And this is the premise of the book. A robot yearns to remember. A thief struggles to forget. A galaxy on the verge of collapse. On the verge of a broken civilization, a robot awakens with no memories and only one directive: find his creator. But in the village of Corte, Bitro finds only radioactive pestilence, famine, and Mire, a tormented thief with dreams of retiring after her final score. Meanwhile, the fiefdom is plunged further into chaos when a new warlord seizes control. Recasting serves as refugees and leaving derelict robot peasants in his wake. With a shared interest in survival, Bitro and Mire team up to pull up an impossible castle heist. Still a single flake of dark matter, the world's most valuable and mysterious ore. But as they trek through the feudal wasteland in search of answers, they realize the true extent of the chaos surrounding them. The stars are disappearing from the sky and the entire galaxy is unraveling. As he uncovers his origin, Bitro discovers he may be the key to the salvation of the cosmos, or its destruction. Time, space, and loyalty become relative as he learns the real reason he was created. Mind-bending science fiction epic with the bones of a fantasy traveling quest, Dark Theory unfolds through a journey of betrayal, identity, and unlikely friendships in a world of darkness set at the edge of space and time. So everything about that sounds so good, and well, I hope that I will love this one if I'm able to get to Dark Theory this month. If not, I will leave this one for next month reading. So that's all the novels that I plan to read in the month of September. As for the manga series, I plan to start reading 2 manga series. The first one is Kaiju number 8. This is a super popular manga series right now, and well, I think it is time for me to start reading the manga series, even though I think this one is only about 7 volumes or 8 volumes long right now. But with the anime adaptation coming out, I want to catch up to the manga series first and find out why this one is so popular. Then the second manga series that I plan to start, not finish, is Full Metal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. This is Fullmetal Alchemist, especially Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, the anime adaptation, is one of my favorite things in this world. I love Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood so much. I have watched this one. I've watched this anime adaptation, I think, 3 or 4 times from beginning to the end, and every time I watch the series, I still think this is truly one of the best story in the world of all time. But honestly speaking, I haven't finished reading the manga from the beginning to the end. Every time I start reading the manga, I always end up watching the anime adaptation instead, because it is almost a complete adaptation of the manga panel by panel, and I think, well, as I said, the anime adaptation is truly incredible. It is a masterpiece, and this time, I want to try reading the manga from the beginning to the end, especially with Elliot Brooks' Readalong coming up. I will leave the link to her Readalong announcement of Fullmetal Alchemist in the description down below. I highly recommend you to check it out, and if you haven't read Fullmetal Alchemist, or if you haven't watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, this is your time to do it. Seriously, do it. You won't regret it. So yeah, that's all the novels and manga series that I plan to read in the month of September. Do let me know which books you think is the most interesting in my TBR here, and which books do you plan to read in the month of September. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.